Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm so excited to paint with you today. And we are going to be doing something very different in our watercolor journal books. We are going to be using not watercolor today. So I'm going to be using watercolor's cousin here, Gouache. So this is a gouache set I got recently. Cheap set off of Amazon. You can find the links in the description. These are like, they call them jelly cups, gouache, a set of 24 colors. They have a nice waterproof or watertight, not watertight, airtight case that comes with them. And then they come with all these little cups here that normally have, tops on them that you peel off and then you're ready to go. So this is my gouache set. And now gouache, for those who don't know, the reason I called it the cousin of watercolor is because it is an opaque paint like acrylic paint, but it's water soluble. When it dries, it can still be reconstituted with water. I try to keep these not dried out though, because they're much easier to work with. So you just have to keep that in mind, but they are opaque, unlike watercolor. So we can actually build layers on top of each other from dark to light. You can put lighter colors on top and they will remain lighter or brighter, unlike watercolor, which is all transparent. So we're going to give this a try today. I'm excited to start to play around with gouache more. So you might see a couple more pages in my journal. It'll now have to be a mixed media journal. That either combine watercolor and gouache or might be mostly gouache. So today we're going to get started with some sunflower paintings. And you can see I've marked out my journal. I've taped it out into 4 different squares here to go over other supplies. So this is the gouache set I have. Himi, I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. Very popular. You see it a lot online. Gouache comes in lots of different brands. You can get it in like Winsor, Newton, and other name brands that you're familiar with in tubes. I'm also using a selection of brushes. I'll probably be sticking with, you can use the same brushes that you use for watercolor. Just make sure to rinse them out really well. A size 3, a size 6 round, and a 1/2 inch flat today. And I'm still working in my Bauhong watercolor journal book, 100% cotton paper, 140 pound cold press. You definitely want a good weighted paper for this, but you can definitely use different mixed media types of paper and things like that, but it will still get the paper wet and will cause buckling if it's too lightweight. Then I also have a mixing tray here, just plastic, came with the set, goes on top. And we're going to pull out some paint. So it comes with a couple of brushes, which I can use as well. So I'll just pull these out. It's a round, a flat, and a filbert brush. And I also like to use this palette knife just to pull color out. It makes it easier than scooping out with a brush, and then you got to rinse your brush off. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint backgrounds. We're going to do all dark backgrounds, and then we're going to build light colors on top of those backgrounds. Okay, so I'm going to pull out some of this like cerulean blue color. You do want, I have a couple, I have my paper towel, but I also have like a paint rag over here that I'm going to use quite a bit. I'm going to pull out some of that blue. Let's pull out purple, do a purple background. I'm also going to do a green. You know what, I'm going to do this dark green here that I have in there. And let's do a super, this is like a dark, like ultramarine type blue. Navy. All right, let's stick with that, and then we will build lighter colors on top of these. So the first thing I'm going to do, so I have 4 squares in here, and so these are water soluble. You can use water to make them almost transparent if you add a lot of water, or just enough water to make them kind of flow, but they will be opaque. So getting the water ratio is still important. So I probably pulled out more paint than I need for these tiny squares for sure. I can always put some back in. So painting right to the edges and getting a nice flat wash on the back. So that is the blue. You do have to be a little more aggressive when rinsing out your brushes to get all of the color out. I have 2 water cups. You see here, this will be for my dirty rinse and then a clean rinse and water dipping later on. It'll still get a little tinted for sure. If only I can remember not to dip into that with my very dirty brush. All right, so let's do purple here. Now the only tricky thing with this is after these dry, when I put wet paint on top of them, you do have to build your layers gently, because this bottom layer will, if you get it wet enough, start to bleed into whatever you put on top of it, because they are water soluble. So there's our purple. I'm going to do our dark blue over here. I could have mixed, you can mix these colors too, just like you do any other paint, with each other to make different colors. You can doctor these colors up. You don't have to just use the 24 that come in your palette. Let's put that green on there. I'm going to have to use these colors for something else. I'm going to have to do another painting because I have so much pulled out. This green is lovely, and this is a color green that I would normally stay away from in watercolor. But in this opaque nature, I think it looks pretty awesome. There we go. All right, so we have our 4 backgrounds, and now we are going to paint. We're going to let them dry completely. I'm going to use my heat tool to make them dry, which is right here, and then we will come back. This one is already mostly dry. They dry pretty quickly, but I'm going to make them dry, make sure everything is dry, and then we'll come back and start to put our sunflowers on top. All right, we're back. And we're ready to start putting our sunflowers on. I'm going to start with the centers of all of these. And I'm going to do pretty much dark. I'm going to do 2 lighter centers and 2 darker centers. So I'm going to start with, I have brown in here. Pull that out on the palette. Add some water to it. And I'm just using my size 6 brush here. So we'll do a darker center here. Now I could have planned this out much more thoughtfully, but I have not. So I'm going to figure out colors as I go. So that's kind of the base of my center. For 2 of them. And then I'm going to do 2 kind of more yellowy centers, because all of my sunflowers are not going to be yellow. So I looked up this image of just sunflowers, and it had this big grid of all these different not species, but varieties of sunflowers. I think they're all the same kind of floral species, but variety of all different colors that are considered sunflowers, but they come in all these different colors, more than just the traditional yellow. We will do a traditional yellow one. So for this one, I think I'm going to do more of a, and you're going to see what I mean, more of a yellow kind of flower on top. So you can see that this yellow and this green below are kind of mixing together. It's like reconstituting. I'm going to let that dry and put another layer on. So the good thing is you can build up layers that will build up the opacity, and they won't mix as much. But let's do the same thing. Will probably happen down here a bit. So you do want to be gentle. And I am not a gouache expert by any stretch of the imagination. I am just starting to dabble in it, just like you probably. So just keep that in mind when I'm showing you things. I'm showing you as I'm learning too. This isn't meant to be a master class, if you will. Okay, so we have our browns that are down here. I'm going to start to build, and I am going to pull some of this color out. I'm going to do more of a traditional yellow on here. I kind of want to do pink on that one. So let's do the more traditional yellow down here on this blue. Then maybe on here I'll do like a more white one. So again, we're going to see on this yellow some of this blue come through. But we're going to build a couple of layers on this. So just making sunflower shaped petals all the way around. Still looks fun. I actually like the depth that you get and the texture while you build, and you get some of the color from behind. It's like working with an underpainting, which I think is great. Okay, so yellow there. Let's do like a white or beigeish color. I'm going to start with a white over here. I'm going to add a little water to it. I'm sure the purple is going to come through. I even have a little yellow still on my brush, so it's going to be like a beigey kind of white. This is almost daisy-like, but it is going to be, with this set, it'll translate as a sunflower. Don't worry, there are more layers to come. This is not the end-all, be-all. And sunflower petals are often very ragged, and they're not as perfect as we think in our heads. So hopefully this isn't too tedious for you all, because we're going to be kind of doing the same thing over and over again as we build these different colors and layers up. And the centers aren't done either, just so you know. We're going to be coming back to those centers, adding depth and layers. But we're going to be continuing to add like highlights and things that we normally can't do in watercolor. Okay. We're going to go to this one. And I'm going to use like a magenta color. But I'm going to add white to it. I want to do lighter. Actually, I guess I can put the dark color down first. We'll do that. I forget. I don't have to start and protect my lights. I can put all the darks down and then make it lighter as I go. Pull my sleeve up. And I have to think about what I'm going to do with this one over here. Oh, and it's going to give us some deep purple shadows on here. This is going to look super bright and vibrant at first. I'm going to add lighter tints on top. We're going to mix in white and have like a pale pink color. Doesn't look like that now, but it will. I love the look of the white one. It looks very three-dimensional already. Sorry if my hand is in the way. All right, there we go. That one looks very dark. So let's do a lighter color for this one. You know what? I'm going to do like a bright orange color. I have this red, this reddish orange. We're going to start a little darker. This will be interesting. And I got a glob of water on here. You can see on my background that it does reconstitute. We'll try to paint over that. Add some water to this, get it to flow a little better. There we go. And after we get all of these kind of first layers on, we're going to let everything dry, even though like some of the stuff we first did will probably be dry as we work our way around. I have a feeling this is going to be a very long video. So if you're still here with me, thanks for joining me on this journey. This one looks so dark and it's going to be so much lighter. I'm so excited. Okay, let everything dry, come back, and we will add more depth and layers by pulling out highlights, putting in shadows, and just having a grand old time as we play with gouache. All right, we're back. I could definitely rinse my water out. If you need to rinse your water, go ahead and do that. I'm gonna just leave mine for one more round. I think we'll be okay. I'm gonna come back to this dark brown, and I'm also going to pick up a little green. So I'm going to come back into the center of my white one here. I'm going to add some green to my yellow, and also some brown around the edges. Few spots in the middle here. I am going to take my little size 3 brush. My size 3 has no water on it right now. It's just a dry brush, and I'm just using what's on the page. It was pretty wet. And just mixing it together. I love this because it's very easy to get texture with gouache. Go a little more green, greenish brown in the center here. And I am going to let this dry, and we can always come back and add more details on top once this is dry. So the theme is you still have to let gouache dry, just like watercolor, but you can see that gives it a little bit more depth in there, makes it a little more rounded. Let's come back to the petals with our white. So we had that white that we mixed up. This has a little tiny bit more of this brown or a purple in it. And we are going to use that to paint in some more. Actually, I'm going to go even a little darker. Let's get a little more white. So pure white on top of this is going to create more highlights. As you can see, as I go on top, it stays whiter and brighter. And then we can also add some shadows in a few places. And I have some lighter, whiter spots. I'm going to actually put in some darker spots. Let's take that white and, you know what, let's grab a little bit of purple. So I have, sorry, I'm mixing off camera. I have this purple over here. I've added a little white too, so it's not quite so dark. I'm just going to add a little brown, maybe less purple, more brown. And put in some texture on the petals, make them a little darker, kind of those that are underneath. So this one is underneath those, so you can see the difference. Add very thin lines for texture. There we go. I'm going to add a little bit more white in a few spots for super, super highlights. Not super highlights, but just some really bright spots. And you could even do, so I have like this white. I could even do like this pale light peach kind of flesh tone color as another highlight. It's brighter and lighter than the other colors, but it has some tint to it. Oh my gosh, we have 4 more or 3 more of these to do. You know what, I'm going to go in, I'm going to add a few little dapples of highlights in the center. And I'm going to call it a day. We're going to go a little bit darker with some brown. There we go. All right, we have a flower. We have a flower. We have a white daisy / sunflower. Okay, let's move on to this one because I really want to get that pink in there. Then maybe I will speed up the end of the other two. Okay, so we're going to do this light pink over top of this. So still getting lots of the magenta kind of coming through. That dark, deep purpley color. Add some other petals in here that maybe weren't in here before. And I'm letting some of the dark petals on the underneath still be seen through, and those will serve as shadows. And with this pink, I found that gouache paints, the lighter colors end up drying darker. Just FYI. And like in watercolor, dark colors tend to, as they dry, get lighter. So I'm adding this peachy color to the pink. I'm going to use that. Add some highlights. Sometimes you do have to just rinse your whole brush off to kind of start fresh. You get too much kind of glopped up in there. And then in the center, we're going to bring in some black for the shadows. And then I'm going to finish the other two up just on my own at high speed, because it'll be a lot of explaining the same thing over again. I still want you to be able to see if those were your two favorite colors. The final product. I'm just going to go over everything because I really am trying to pull this out of the darker spectrum here. I'm going to definitely need another layer for some shadows. And some contrast, even some brighter highlights. All right, let's get into the center. I'm going to take out some of this black that I have in here, mix it with my brown. We're going to go right into the center and also go right along the edge where they overlap with the petals. The texture is so easy to create with the gouache because it is kind of a buildable medium. And then I can even go in with my brown with with a little white. So I have just mixing it into some white I already had on the palette to just make some slightly lighter areas here. All right, we're gonna let that one dry. I'm gonna work on my other two. We're gonna fast forward those a little bit for you as I work on them. And then we will take off our tape and see our little quad of 4 sunflowers. Had a water drip on there. All right, let's dive in. All right, we're back. Our sunflowers are done. This was so much fun painting and building all these layers of texture. Let's take off our tape to see what we have. Now I know I got some stuff on my page over here, so I'm not going to have a perfectly clean outline. Oh, and I did get some leaks under the tape, but that's okay. I am going to be forgiving, because overall, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. That's so funny. I thought it would be less likely to leak under the tape than watercolor, but it turns out more likely. There we go. But still feels really good when the tape comes off, and it cleans up those edges quite a bit. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this departure from our regularly scheduled programming of watercolor only to paint in gouache with me. And like I said, you might see some more dabblings in gouache, whether it's combined with watercolor or on its own. But this was really fun, and I really enjoyed painting this in my journal. So don't forget to check out the link, the description for links to supplies and materials, as well as leave a comment, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you again very soon for our next watercolor journal page. Take care, y'all. Happy painting.